Hello, 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 everyone. Mike Arnold here, co-founder, Pat Trading Partners, along with Bob Iacino. How is everyone doing? Hey, Jake, welcome. Any luck on your Jacksonville search? Still looking. Also, wife's looking back in Arizona again, also. So we shall see. Good afternoon, Amit. Good afternoon, Sashi. Hey, Waka Waka. Where you get Dow Jones is slightly down from what? 0.2% from what? I mean, the futures aren't trading yet. So what are you looking at? Just need to know. We shall see when the futures open in a couple hours in Chicago. That's generally what I go off of. Spread works much better in an up-down market. Hey, Abraham, welcome. So, again, Bostic is speaking tonight, by the way, so do keep that in mind. And if you are new here, please do consider subscribing, ringing the bell, and hitting the like button. Longer term viewers, leave some comments and like the videos. And by the way, I posted the weekly sector review. So that's where we sit. Just tweeting on Fed funds rate, looking back on trend line every time we enter a market crash. This time is 1.8%, exactly where the Fed funds rate will hit in July, and we shall see how that unfolds, won't we? Thanks, Waka Waka. Hello, Wavy. You sound tired. Hope the family and you are well. I am exhausted. It's been a long weekend. I'm not going to keep this live stream really that long. I have to do a bunch of stuff still today. Everyone out here looking for a bottom. We do have a couple potential bottoming signals, but they have not triggered yet. So then they might be erased by tomorrow morning. So we shall see. Wavy out here looking for tops. Well, there you go, Wavy. By the way, keep an eye out for the next podcast, Jim Ariel podcast. I recorded that Friday afternoon and put in a lot of information about what I think about the markets and different positions for longer term plays. So watch for that to drop probably tomorrow in the morning. My trading platform shows weekend DJI, but what is it referencing? Because I need to know what it's referencing. Let's see what's coming up this week. What's coming up this week? Again, we have Bostic speaking tonight. Bostic speaking tomorrow morning. So it's a lot of Fed speak between before the markets really get going. Wholesale inventories tomorrow at 9 a.m. Central Time. Then on the Tuesday, we got Bostic speak again. He's busy. He's busy. And in the morning and the afternoon, and Mester speaking in the afternoon. So keep an eye on that. Then we have inflation on Wednesday. So that's going to be a big one. The inflation rate coming out pre-market on Wednesday, 7:30 Central, and you of course you have your EIA gas and oil stuff. Thursday PPI before the market and continuous jobless claims with all the core numbers also. So that's going to be market moving. And Friday Michigan consumer sentiment preliminary for May, and that's right after the open, 30 minutes. So there's a lot of potentially market moving stuff this week. Just a reminder, Friday was pretty much mixed. Some of the large mega caps down a bit, except for Apple up slightly. But you had a mixed with oil being up, some of the healthcare being up. And again, check out my thoughts on the sector overview if you haven't already. FOMC 83.9% for June. That we will get the another 50 basis point hike, 16% that they're still going with a 75 basis point hike. And a reminder, the gamma is still in negative gamma territory. So again, amplifies up and down moves. Earnings not a massive earnings week in terms of market moving. I know some people will be watching Palantir. Definitely people will be paying attention to AMC. Certain people will be. Another Tuesday after the close, SoFi will be for some people. Peloton for others, but that's on its way down. Let's see what else. Wednesday, Disney should be interesting after the close. Rivian after the close. Beyond Meat. Let's see if that keeps heading down. And then let's see, Thursday, I'll keep an eye on a firm just for where the consumer sits and whether they're leveraging stuff up more or whether They're getting more defaults potentially, and not much on Friday. So, got that out of the way. Hello, I think that was Professor. So that's what I was wondering too. What's the weekend Dow Jones? So I'm wondering what you're looking at. Uh, Here's what I'm watching. Again, this is going to be shorter than normal. This got this extended flat period, but this is still a valid double. It's slightly lower probability, and I did talk about this on the podcast. So I need to have a close above this high, though. Wouldn't trade it during overnight sessions on just a breakout. I need a close, and that'd have to at least be a 1 hour close, preferably a 4 hour close. And that would be above 41.53.25 because this could roll back down and sort of turn this into a bigger bottoming pattern or break and invalidate it. So that's what I'm keeping an eye on with the S&P on the short term. And that would just be a little short-term bounce. You see, that only takes it back to the prior harmonic, the 25% harmonic. Keep that in perspective. Even with that, just takes it into the daily rotation zone. We do have a potential bigger bottoming pattern. Again, we need a close above 43.03 on a daily basis to trigger, and that is a valid double. Now, if we head lower into next week, into especially overnight and lower, I'm watching about 40.25, 40.23 to 40.25 area for first key area of support. 39.94, 39.62 are the key support points. You push much lower below about 4,000, we're going to be invalidating this bigger potential double. So that's also, but you have to map out both sides, even though, you know, a lot of people are very bearish. There are some potential bullish plays out there. We are against the 4 hour rotation zone. Okay, so we came up to tap it a couple times on Friday. And by the way, this is why even this 1 hour double is a little lower probability because it's against the 4 hour and the daily rotation zones. But the only interesting thing is into a clear path move. So if it triggers and we get some momentum to the upside, it could easily get through all those targets. Now, what does that mean? That means it's in the daily rotation zone and we could get another rollover play before this double even triggers. So don't rule out any potential upside action. Tonight, we could get a push down. It might all be invalid by tomorrow morning, so that's what we'll have to keep an eye on. Hey, Christoph. Hey, no problems. Options. I figured that's what was going on. From your broker only provider weekend trading, we do not have access to real-time data underlying asset prices during the weekend trading hours. Yeah, the only thing I can go off is, again, once the futures start opening. Other than that, everything else is you know, there's some other things that trade overseas that try to, you know, especially some of the betting sites that try to bet up or down on this stuff that you can look at, but I don't think it holds much water until we get the futures open. Hello, welcome back. Wissit 661. Glad you could join me on a Sunday afternoon. Do you ever adjust your position sizing, etc., when there's a double bottom that has lower probabilities than you are mentioning? Yes. Yes. I can scale back on my risk. So if it was normal position was a 2%, I could go in with a 1%, especially when you're going against a major trend. Remember, S&P is in bearish mode even on this other thing I highlight in the sector overview. That's also in bearish mode, plus the other systems I follow that I don't give you specific details on this channel because I cannot, just for proprietary reasons. They have been in sell mode. So when stuff's in sell mode and you have against the rotation zone, like on the 4 hour and the 1 and the daily for this potential double, that's easily to scale back risk from like a 2% to a 1%. So that is a completely valid thing to do because your probabilities are lower. Does that mean you completely ignored a trade? No. There's very few instances that there'll be a complete ignored trade that is a valid setup. Will CPI data help us bounce? Well, it depends where. It depends where the data comes. I mean, if CPI data showed a big drop, it could fuel a bounce because people would say, "Oh, the Feds can't be hiking that much now because inflation's already dropping." Now, can we get a minor drop and it's not going to change things? Yeah, because even a minor drop, remember, on your economic calendar, here's your core inflation rate. Let's say it came in previous with 6.5. Let's say it comes in at 6.2. Is it a drop? Yeah. Is it still ridiculously high? Yeah. Is that going to change what the Fed's doing? I wouldn't think so. 8.5. Let's say it came in at 8.1. You're still above 8%. Even if it came in at 7%, it's still ridiculously high. Now, would the market possibly rally off that? Sure. So that's why we have to be prepared for those figures. But again, I'm still not trying to predict what's going to happen because I don't know what those inflation numbers are going to come out. I have to trade the patterns. I have to trade the patterns and the setups. That's all we can do from a technical analysis point of view. And keeping in mind that longer term things are in sell mode. We might have a little bounce play, but even on a bounce play, it then could be in a rollover zone again for more bearish price action. So always keep that bigger picture in mind. Just like once we trigger longer term buy signals again, there'll still be pullbacks in the market, but those are the ones we are looking to buy and buy a little more aggressively. These are to be bought, as Jake just asked, with, you can go with a lower risk. You can also, if you're looking to reestablish hedging or short positions, this triggers, well, where's some good areas to start watching for reestablishing short or hedging positions on a rally, especially back to this 25% target area into the daily rotation zone. So it can be used a number of ways, which is why I'm not telling everybody exactly how to trade, because I don't know everybody's portfolio. I don't know the way they trade. I don't know their time frame. I don't know their account size. I don't know their overall viewpoints and everything, but you can start to learn various strategies and structures and incorporate it into your trading style, whatever that may be. Hello, I am Indian. Please say Monday down up target, please. I gave you my targets again. It has to trigger. So here's what I'm watching. A close above this 4 would trigger a slightly lower probability, still way better than 50%, but it's lower probability because of this, both the flat area and it is against the 4-hour daily rotation zones. But if that does trigger on a close above 41.53, then we have 41.99, 4,200, essentially 42.21 and 42.45. Other than that, I don't have any other bullish plays. We are at cycle tops on the daily. Keep that in mind, but cycle bottoms on the weekly. So we could still roll over, continuing roll over, because these cycle bottoms have not turned up yet on the weekly. So is there more potential downward price action? Potentially, yes. The only thing that would shift me to short-term bullish is if this triggers, and that would be very, very short-term bullish. What would turn me to medium-term bullish is if this other double triggers, and that would only be medium-term bullish for then a bigger rollover play. NASDAQ, similar. This does count. This does count also with this flat area, pretty similar pattern. S&P into a clear path move above 12,928.75. You got 13,138, 13,236, 13,338 are the upside targets. If this rolls down, just update the short term, see where this heads. Minor would be still this 12,500. 12, let me pull off a couple of these other levels here. Remember 12,500 as a minor level, and more significant area, we're still looking at then about 12,468, then 12,390. So again, against that 1 hour rotation zone, still we're below the 1 hour rotation zone on the NASDAQ, below the 4 hour rotation zone, and this could come up and trigger and still not be out of the way of the 4-hour rotation zone if we got some really bullish price action. So again, lower probabilities and against the daily rotation zone. And you see here, even if this did trigger and went to full targets, it would just be in that daily rotation zone for another potential rollover to the downside. Now you also still, this is valid. We do have another potential double. I'd be shocked if it triggered, but I do have to map it out. 13, 5, 55, 25 would be the trigger pattern on that. Now, if we push much lower overnight, this other double would be potentially off the table. Weekly cycles also at the bottom for the NASDAQ, but dailies at the top and rolling over. So we could easily see another push lower before we put in a short-term bottom. That's why it's a very mixed market. And we had mixed price action, trying to recover a bit on Friday, but still pretty mixed price action. And if you look here, you know how you like to use that 62, still closing below that, well below this 62.5% to the upside. But I will be watching for at least a close tomorrow morning if we don't go make an overnight high above 27.75 for an indication we might make a run to Friday's highs. That still doesn't mean this pattern would necessarily trigger. So Waka Waka thinks CPI will print at 9.6 and base at 7.2. Oh, whew. You want to talk about a punch to the gut to the markets, and that, you know, it could happen. I'm not making guesses of where the CPI will print. I have no idea. Was wondering if your long-term system gave you a renewed weekly sell signal on the DAX and silver ETF. I will let you know. We can look at that in a second. Dow. Again, sloppy pattern, horizontal area, but it's still valid. 12,963, 33,257, 33,403, 33,550 into clear path, but I need that close above 32,963. Also against that 4-hour rotation zone, against the daily rotation zone. Daily cycles didn't get to the top yet and are starting to roll over. Weekly basis cycles are at the bottom, but still no traction yet to the upside. And by the way, this is not a double bottom on the Dow on the daily because the targets exceed. If you see, if I map these out, see the second target is into the wicks up here. So it's only the first target, which interesting enough is a flat 200. So that's the only legitimate target. If we did rally medium term in the Dow, I would just be targeting the 200. Russell. There is a potential bottoming pattern in here, long way off. That's a medium-term basis. On the short-term basis, not even watching this because it's against, I'll map it out. But, you know, here's the problem with this one. You have that flat area. This could trigger and not even get through that flat area. So this would be the last one I'd be looking at. But if you're a Russell trader, and you want to know those targets, if it did trigger on a close above 1834.9, then you'd be watching 1885, about 1896 and 1907. Keep in mind, Russell also broke this major support, which it retested. Here, this is a great example. So, great example of support becoming resistance. Okay, so and remember, support and resistance aren't an exact like hard wall. Okay, you can come up here, you can come up here, and you watch for zones. So let's just say we use these zones. Okay, so you see breaking below there, retest that bottom area, come back to that daily rotation zone, retest that top area, and then rolling over. So even on this rally, even into the daily rotation zone, you have a ton of overhead resistance before even this medium term would trigger. So I'd be shocked if that ever got to a triggering point, but things have shocked me before. That's why I still have to map it out. This would be the last market I'd be turning to, though, on a bullish basis because it's going against not only the rotation zone, but it's below major resistance now. DAX is still in long-term sell mode. DAX, nothing going on. Long-term sell mode. Again, we popped in the rotation zone on the weekly and rotating back down. There is, again, on any rallies here, this is not a double, by the way, because this huge hitch and it exceeds this move. But if we break below 13,577, 13,406, and then you have the 62.5 level, 13,375. Now remember, you close below about 13,370 on a daily basis. I'm watching for a return to this low area longer term. On any rallies, my key area I'm watching for key resistance is about 14,060 at this point. Crude, again, we probably put in an intermediate term low unless we break down back below about 102.50 area on a closing basis. I'm really watching us for a break above this 50% retracement level, 111.72. Then my target is the this 16.14 area and this little swing high, because that would be above the 50% retracement, and I'd be targeting 62.5. A close above 62.5, then we get the target to 126 roughly to 130 again, which would be a return to highs, which would be interesting. Just on a harmonics point of view, you see here on a break above this 50% level and this little resistance shelf that was formed between Thursday and Friday last week, you have 1368 for stop reduction. And then again, it's reinforcing the 62.5. Look at all this area right in here. Do not ignore that area. That'd be a great place. If you're really bullish, to at least raise a stop again. If you're partially bullish, raise a stop and lock in some profits. Key support I'm watching on any pullback is about 105.20, and I already gave me what would shift it back to at least short-term bearish mode for the biggest pullback. I also talked about on the podcast, which I'm not going to redo here, but why I don't like the triangles and how it shifted and my thoughts on that. So tune into that for those thoughts. Gold. Cycles are mixed on the daily, on the weekly. They're getting into bottoming. We don't have a key bottom. This might be trying to put in a short-term bottom, but you have major support. If it does break down below this 1853, we're at 1840. Again, this I talk about trading gold and silver, though, around the core position on the podcast. So tune into that. Coming back up in the resistance. So you have prior support here, becoming resistance with the declining rotation zone. So in order for me to get more aggressively bullish, I'd have to get a close above about 1920. That would take us above this support, above the prior support becoming resistance, and above the rotation zone and the 50. Until then, any pullbacks are unwound more aggressively on bounces. Silver, pretty much the same thing. Horribly sloppy little pattern here that it came up. You see this, let me show you here, with this little double coming up to the first target, second, and then rolling back down into this triple bottom formation. Cycles, we're trying to turn up on the daily, but still trying to find a bottom on the weekly. Silver's just a mess right now. Longer term, I'm still bullish, but I got to trade around the core position. Unless we really start breaking below by 2105, then I'm looking to lighten and adding back lower. Notes. Keeping an eye on this little similar pattern to the S&P and NASDAQ with this little potential double with this flat area is still valid. I need to close below, above 118.09 and a half. Then we get the rally 118.20 and a half, 118.26, 118.31 and a half. Keep in mind lower probabilities against the daily and 4-hour rotation zone, but longer term, I'm watching for, within the next little bit, still watching for a bottoming pattern in the longer term weekly with the cycles at the bottom and very oversold and getting still well away from the weekly rotation zone. But if this did pattern, this would just be a short-term play, not a long-term play yet. By the way, long term on silver, I forgot that for Christoph. You want it on the SIL. Long term is in sell mode on the weekly. Long term is in sell mode based off SIL. I like to do it off the futures. And because we've had this still in consolidation, I'd need a weekly close back below 22, roughly 22 on the weekly to tip it into sell mode based off the futures. We don't have a bottom yet. Well, we don't have any bull signal triggers yet, so we might not have a bottom yet. Again, wait for a trigger. Don't try to guess. And just because there's a potential trigger doesn't mean it has to trigger. Oops. VIX. Just keep an eye on this little short-term sloppy head and shoulders, which did trigger on Friday. So I am keeping an eye on that. Where would I invalidate that? Based off of this, you get a close back above, at least a 1 hour close above 33.27, then that's invalidated at that point. So that's why I'm also keeping an eye to see if we do put in at least a short-term little bottom if this VIX keeps rolling over. Hey, Mike, just to recap with GAN levels for a pullback and continuation of trend, a close and bounce off the 50%. If no pullback and sideways action and stays above 25%, a close blows. Oh, hold on. I watch for bounce plays a lot between 0.5 and 0.625. For any pausing areas on a stronger rally, I watch for it to stay above the 25% on a closing basis. That's considered a shallow pullback to me on a closing basis, and that is a strong indication of a trend continuation move. To play it safe, could we create another downtrend line, new steeper line connecting prior peak to new peak? Referencing just to NAS. To play it safe, could we create another downtrend line, new steeper line connecting prior peak to new peak? You mean these peak on which time frame? Here would be your daily. Well, first of all, I'm just not going to go through all these things, but this would be an initiating point. This would be a defining point. That would be your downtrend roughly in line with the rotation zone, the top of the rotation zone. So again, yes, that can be used for also a time target with coming up here. And you see that, let me just fine tune it based off the 4 hour. But you know here, if this goes sideways overnight, then triggers, you can use that to help fine tune the targets. SPY is in double bottom. The spiders. Well, the spiders on the medium-term basis have a potential double bottom. On a short-term basis, you have at this point let me just measure this out. It actually has to be at this point. You do have a potential valid double in the spiders. Your trigger would not be until 414.80, so 414.80. Keep in mind, again, same thing follows. Lower probability since it's against a 4 hour and daily. First target would be to the daily rotation zone, and the second and third would take it into the daily rotation zone. But you do have those levels, and those levels are 418.50 roughly, 420, and then 422. If we reverse the harmonic levels too, there's your 62.5 just behind this other target. So you could come up here, hit the first and second, not close above there, and still roll back over. And that would just be in the daily rotation zone. So that is completely valid. But I would, again, you got to wait for that to trigger. NASDAQ. does also have a little potential double. 319.48, 321.67, 323.87 need a close above 315.09, at least on a 1 hour basis. All right. And just in case anybody asks, this is still a potential double bottom for a medium term basis, but I'll wait to map those out to see how we trade before then, because on a much lower push, it will be invalidated. So there's that potential bullish, but again, on the Qs, daily cycles at the top, weekly cycles at the bottom, but not yet turning up. So could it, again, still be lower price action into the open tomorrow? Very easily, and a strong push lower would invalidate these bottoming patterns. Remember, there's still potential. So that doesn't mean you rush out and just buy it on the open, because there's a potential bottoming pattern, because they could be invalidated. Yep, summer driving season soon for crude. It's going to get interesting. And take a look at diesel stores on the East Coast. They are at like 30-year record lows, and we aren't in the driving season yet. And with everything else, with supply chain and cost of already diesel where it is, you get even bigger constraints on diesel. It's just going to be more inflationary pressures. You are welcome, Amit. You are welcome, Wizit. Thank you again for tuning in. And I answered your question on that with options. Let's take a look. Tesla. Tesla did close below 62.5, so I am watching for a return to 755 and then eventually 700 potentially. Does that preclude rallies? No, you can still get insane rallies in Tesla. But you had this decent rally into the rotation zone and then pretty strong rotation lower. Is this a potential double? Yes. And it is completely valid for those Tesla traders. You need a daily close above 955.50, 1,011.70, 1040, and then 1067. Could it trigger, come up here, and then roll over and hit new lows? Yes, because that still would not invalidate the lower price action. And it's still in just a huge consolidation pattern. Hey, George, how you doing? Thanks for being here for us. So how's moving to Florida going? Well, we're not moving yet. I mean, boy, the housing market, like our next door neighbors have had 4 open houses. Their house is up for sale, and they've had 4 open houses, and the foot traffic's been pathetic around here. Like the market's just gone dead. So we'll see if something picks up, if we get a little pop in notes and mortgage rates get a little drop. Other than that, we shall see. By the way, wife's looking back in Arizona again. Also, does your long-term system also work for ratios like XLK, SPY? I haven't tested on ratios. I imagine it wouldn't be any different. Technical analysis, I mean, I use technical analysis on ratios all the time, and there's nothing special about that long-term system that would preclude me using it on ratios. I mean, we can peek in like just on value growth. If you take a look at here, triggered a sell signal back on the 10th of January. Triggered a major buy signal back on January of 19, and never issued a sell signal until 8th of March. Another buy on the 14th of June, and then selling again on the 3rd of January. So that's the way, again, I've looked at it on these ratios, but I have not specifically looked at it on something like the XLK SPY. I've looked at it on my growth value stuff and mega cap stuff. Like mega caps triggered the sell signal back in January also. Mike, I know you touched on the SPY. We touched on the 405 level on Monday and Friday. What's your expectation going into this week? Possible break and next levels. If you want the next levels lower on the spiders, I gave you the only thing that would shift it to short-term bullish. If you want the levels lower that I'd use, at this point, I'd be focusing on the reverse harmonics first. So 401.94 and 398.86. Let's just see where those forward harmonics go to from the last push down. And look, you have 397.89 to 398.86 would be, if we continue to sell off, that would be my next area of major support. Minor support would be 401.94. You're welcome, Christoph. Again, thanks. I'll look into it a little more on those other ones. And again, you can always message me again through Discord with any other thoughts. So let's see. You had, and next level's 398.82. Yeah, you're real close with that. I have 397.89 to 398.86. So you're right there, Amit. And then you have 391 and I have 390.76. So it's virtually the same. Remember, you're not trying to call things to the penny. Okay, you're trying to get an area like within a few, within a reasonable amount, but those would be the cluster and then the next level lower. There we go. All right. I'm going to wrap it up for now. Hope everybody, yeah, I saw that Ford's going to set to unload 8 million Rivian shares. I did see that today. Let me see. Check out RSP ETF, equally weighted S&P 500 weekly chart. This one might break down in very few stopping points. So we'll take, that's going to be the final thing. I will look at that for Christoph. Yeah, that's the equal weight. Let's take a look at that on the weekly. Again, weekly, that has a sell signal. You had on that daily, remember you had that mess of a pattern. Let's just see. Never got that. Yeah, on a weekly basis, this is still valid for the next levels. Down first targets hit 143.15, 140.34. And this is ugly. If we do get that close back below about this, look at this. First target 145.95, which is also pretty significant. Look at that. You get that close, I'd even go to 145.50. You get a close below that, you're into this. And that could be ugly. Next target is this prior breakout area. And then your final target, then you have a gap. So yeah, that's an ugly chart on the equal weight. And you're against the daily rotation zone. So anything, why is that? Anything's, these are still on equal weight. It's long-term bearish mode, rallies still. Rallies and everything. People think you can't rally in these severely down markets. Well, you can, and you will. It's just getting the timing right. So there'll even be rallies in this, but longer term, I'd be watching for that rollover play, just like Christoph pointed out. Also, another unnamed seller is offloading a big amount of Amazon. Wonder who that could be. Hope the family and you are well. Please get some rest. Thank you. I am tired. I am absolutely exhausted. So I'm going to call it a day then. I still have work to do and prep to do. So I will be back, though, for tomorrow morning on the open. But still showing up to help everybody to get our market prep in. Thank you for being here. You have a great evening, Christoph. You have a great evening, everyone else. I really appreciate you tuning in live, and I'll talk to everyone tomorrow morning. Bye for now.